Hello. You are listening to the Carroll Connection with your host, Jared Carroll.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Carroll Connection. I am your host, Jared Carroll, here to bring you guys another great episode. I want to take a chance to shout out last week's episode 111 with Tyler Pereira. He is a personal finance advisor, and he also works as an accountant as well. We talked about why he got into that, as well as some of his upbringing, and we got really vulnerable on that episode. It was a really great episode, talking about getting into our feelings a little bit more, trying to express ourselves a little bit more. And it was a really great conversation. You can check it out at thecarrollconnection.simplecast.com. Also, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the major listening platforms. If you like watching the podcast, you can check it out on YouTube as well. Just search the Carroll Connection, and it should pop up right away. For today, bringing in another great guest for episode 112, Liz Cruso.
Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate you for coming on here. This has kind of been a little bit in the process of setting this up. Shout out to Garrick Santos.
Yes.
That was kind of like my bridge to kind of find you. So how I like to open the podcast is just kind of tell people who you are and what you're doing currently, and then we'll dive into the other topics.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, I'm Liz Cruso. I am a personal trainer and gym owner. I own LC Elite Gym in Lincoln, Rhode Island.
Perfect. And we're going to dive into all that stuff regarding just training, fitness. It's going to be a heavy fitness episode. I'm super excited. As I told you off podcast, I love these type of podcasts when we dive into this stuff because it ties right into mental health as well.
Mm-hmm.
So like I mentioned, I like to start with family dynamic because it kind of allows the audience to see where you come from and allows the foundation to be set. So whatever you're comfortable with sharing, I'll let you kind of like take the floor with that and we'll go from there.
Yeah, for sure. So from Westerly, Rhode Island, so a small town. I'm one of 5, so I'm number 4. I have 4 siblings, which was like awesome. But it definitely taught me like getting your voice in a room of like 4 other siblings is like tough. So I'm definitely like, I think I've learned over the years to like, run a room and like lead because I kind of was forced to. Having 2 older brothers, an older sister and a younger sister, it's so hard to like get your voice heard at the kitchen table or anything. So I had to learn to kind of push through. And I think that's kind of made me like how I am now, like pretty assertive and kind of a leader. But I mean, it was a blast growing up with that many siblings. But yeah, it's like amazing. We're all super close now. And it's just been cool to like see all of us become like, we're all very different. Like I'm definitely like the fitnessy one. Some are like into arts. Some are, doing their 9-to-5 corporate jobs. But it's really cool to just see where we've all ended up. But growing up in that type of household has like definitely made me how I am.
Yeah. And I think that's perfect hit on because I have 3 brothers.
Yeah.
So like growing up in a household, trying to get your voice across. I am the oldest for my mom, and we have an older brother. We share the same dad. Technically, we're half brothers, but it's my brother. And it was nice, and maybe you could relate to this, having an older brother to look up to and kind of lead the way a little bit is nice because I would look at the way he would go through things, and I'm like, if he messed up in something, I could kind of take a mental note. I'm like, hey, maybe don't do that. Like,
right.
And having that progression, and I think having siblings is such a blessing that not a lot of people who come maybe are single or only children that I've had on the podcast as well. And they talked about this, like the only child syndrome.
Yeah.
Like having siblings is such a blessing because like they're your first friends.
Oh yeah.
And like that's like the foundation where everything gets formed, where you can kind of just like fight with each other, have fun with each other. And like I always say, one of my younger brothers, Jordan, like we grew up, we just fucking hated each other. Like we just fight all the time. Like with we go to my cousins, we play sports and like just start fist fighting, just like it's like that's what boys do. And like now just like that's one of my best friends. Like like and we're like you mentioned, like we're totally opposite. Like I'm very expressive. I say a lot. I don't shut the fuck up sometimes. And he's just very just nonchalant, quiet, doesn't say much, not on social media, works his job, like, and is content with that. And it's just like this polarity between us. And it's always so interesting to see the different personalities of siblings when we're obviously we share the same genes, but like how different we are. And it's always so interesting because like it's so random. And like, I love opening up with family because we get to see this different perspective from every single person that comes on the podcast, and where we come from and where we grow up and where we go into. And I want to turn into now kind of like childhood with like, I don't know if you played any sports or had any specific hobbies where they were creative, and I'll kind of let you tie into this and then I'll kind of feed off it, but I'll let you take the floor with this.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so the way my family was, I had an older sister, 2 brothers, myself, and then my little sister. So I wanted to literally be my brothers, like full on. Like I was like running around with my shirt off. Like I was such a tomboy. I wanted to do everything my older brothers could do. So I played sports. Basketball was like our main sport. So both my sister was more into the arts and stuff like that, but both my brothers played basketball. So of course I had to play. I had to do everything that they did. So I started playing really, really young, and it's like sad to say that I feel like in small towns now, or just maybe all over the place, town sports aren't as like serious and prevalent as they used to be. But in my town, it was huge. Everyone like went to the YMCA Friday night, had their games, Saturday morning had games again. Like it was such an event for us. We loved it. And so town basketball was huge. And then I played in middle school and I played in high school, but that was my sport. That's where I excelled. I was like, I always feel like it's kind of funny because I feel like you end up like almost sounding braggy when you talk about like, but anyway, so when
brag all you want, I love that.
Cool. So when I was a freshman in high school, I ended up playing varsity basketball. And it was just like, that was it. That was like my sport. I loved it so much. I was very competitive, like probably because of my brothers, like playing out in the backyard with 2 older brothers. I had to just like, I had to be competitive. I had to be very scrappy. I had to be fast. So those are all things that I took, into the sport when I started playing with my team, and it just made me excel in the sport. So in my high school, like we were good. Westerly High, like small town, but we ended up winning a championship my junior year in high school, and then we went back my senior year and lost against LaSalle.
That's kind of not fair, though.
Yeah, right?
LaSalle,
I know.
like,
Isn't that funny that we played LaSalle? Like, we played a private school. I felt like that didn't make any sense.
Yeah, no. Like, that was one thing I, like, luckily, like, Seekonk was, like, a smaller school, and we played against smaller schools for the most part. But, like, our rival was always Dighton Rehoboth. And, like, it's Dighton and Rehoboth. So you're grasping multiple, their pool of kids is way bigger than Seekonk. Exactly. And I'm like, what the, like.
Yeah, well, LaSalle is recruiting. Like, they're taking kids. Oh, yeah. Right? But, of course, like, my mindset is like, I don't care. If I can beat LaSalle, then I beat the best. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't like, oh, I only want to play people on my level. I wanted to level up and, like, play a harder team and beat them. And we didn't. But I was okay with it. But, yeah, it was, like, total bummer senior year. Like, my senior year losing the state championship game was, like, I'll, like, never forget that. Like, that still stays with me, like, so sad. But, yeah, so that was definitely my main sport. And then as I got older, like, looking at colleges and my parents, like, really, really wanting me to get a full scholarship because it's obviously helpful to them. And I understand that now being older, but like I went through that period as a teenager where I was like, can you swear on this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I was like, fuck this. Like, I don't want to be like, I don't want to keep doing what you're telling me to do. Like, I don't want to go to college. I don't want to play I just wanted to basically fuck off because I felt like I had been so serious in this sport for so many years. So I like started playing tennis and I was like, oh, this will be like kind of fun, like something I don't have to take as seriously. So I did that. I played softball for a little while, but like I just kept like sitting down in the outfield and they were like, you're not taking this seriously at all. So, but yeah, basketball was it for me. That was like the sport, but I went through that phase of just like wanting to give it all up. And like, I got a full scholarship and I was like, I don't want to take it. I've done this for long enough. It was like, that was my identity in the town. I was the basketball player. That's what everybody talked to me about. That's it. I was nothing else but like the town basketball player. And like, I think when you're younger, like we were talking about attention, like, yeah, that was great. I thrived off of that. I was like that person, like the athlete of the school. Like, that's cool. But like, then I started to be like, well, who the fuck am I besides that? Like, what else is there to me? So I was like, I'm quitting. I'm done. I'm not taking this scholarship. I'm not going. And then obviously that upset my parents. So
yeah, I'm actually really glad you brought up that point because I've said on multiple episodes, like I had my own like personal identity crisis. Like football was everything to me. Like you knew me for football. Like growing up, that's all I cared about. Like if it wasn't about football, I didn't give a shit about it.
Yeah.
And that was something like my senior year, like so for Seekonk versus Dighton Rehoboth was like it's been like the big Thanksgiving game, and like it's one of the more tenured Massachusetts games that's been played in the state. And it's what everyone looks forward to. You got all the families coming back, all the old alumni coming back. It's like this big thing. And we got our ass fucking handed to us senior year, and like I'll never forget it. Like we just like I remember looking to my left, we got like sophomores and junior playing with us, and it's like we had some freshmen on the field. It was like people were hurt, people didn't care, like because you played the playoffs before Thanksgiving, and it was just like we lost in the playoffs. The morale was low. We just like didn't care, and just like we got ran over. And when it ended, literally like a piece of me was like gone, and like I just didn't know what to do next. Like I struggled for several years trying to figure out what my identity was. Like where do I go from this? Like my whole identity was like school, workout, football. Like that was it. And I've been open on the podcast, like even after like senior year, like after kind of like during senior year, after football, that's when I started to do stupid shit, started to drink more, started to get into drugs, like doing dumb stuff. And like that kind of rolled into college, not trying to know what I didn't know what I wanted to do, and like trying to figure out my place. And it wasn't until like I graduated college, moved to different states. I lived in Texas, I lived in Georgia, where I was forced to confront this identity of like, who the fuck am I? And it was a humbling experience when you could look yourself in the mirror and be like, I don't have an identity right now. Like I am literally, like quite frankly, average and just doing what everyone else is doing. And that's where this podcast birthed from, was like, how can I be different? Where can I put my spin on things? And we'll dive into kind of a little bit further into this topic because I don't want to jump the gun with it. But spinning back to that, I kind of want to know, was there any specific maybe like life lessons that you, because I always like to ponder this question, gained through like basketball for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, when I look back on it now, being older, like I would not be here like where I am now if it wasn't for basketball, because like I wasn't the best student. I was as a younger child, but then you get into high school and you're like, I want to be like cool. So I'm going to like not do that great in school, or I'm going to just like hang out with my friends and just not take that seriously. But basketball was that one thing that like brought me back to like reality. Like you have to be on time. You have to listen. You have to like study. I was a point guard, so I had to know every in and out of every single play and like every option to that play. And I had to know not my position, but all positions on the court. And like, so that like studying and that focus and that time management and then discipline and like working so hard, like working beyond what you feel your body is capable of. Like everything that I do now is because of basketball. It really, I'm not at all trying to put down like schooling or college, but like everything I learned came from just being a very serious athlete, and then up into like the college level and stuff too. Like it's everything. Like it truly made me like, I'm only successful because of how I was in basketball, and having coaches like, force me to be that way, to just like be the leader on the court, be the hardest worker in the room. Like I said that to somebody the other day. I was like, I'm never going to be the smartest person in the room, but I will be 100% the hardest worker in the room. Always. Every single time I'm in a room, I will work harder than anybody in there. And that comes from basketball, because everyone's looking at you too. If you're the point guard and the team captain, like I can't fuck off. I can't. I have people relying on me and looking at me. Like, I'll never forget, like, this is a feeling I miss the most. Like, whenever I think about playing, I just miss, like, being at, like, the other end of the floor. I get it, and I'm just dribbling up towards everyone, and everyone's looking at me. Like, everyone, all my team, the opposite team, everyone's looking at me. My team's looking like, what's the call? Like, I love that feeling, like, of everyone is relying on you right now, and it's like, okay, I just remember my brain is just like going like this, and you feel like the wind on you as you're like running up. Like it sounds so corny, but like I love that feeling, and I'll never forget that. But so obviously I'm not going to ever feel that again in my life, like literally that moment of like dribbling up a court where it like matters, because now I'll just like play pickup. But I do love the feeling of like people relying on me and looking at me and trusting in me that I'm going to get us to wherever we need to go. that's why I am here and do what I do with the gym and stuff.
Yeah, I think it's important too to hit on that discipline aspect, because I feel the same way. I'm like, might not be the smartest out there, but I'm going to outwork you. I'm going to show up every single day. I'm going to keep doing this. Like, there's nothing that you can do that you're going to beat me at. Like, because I always believe in healthy competition. I think healthy competition is good to see, because like innately as humans, we compare ourselves. People can sit there on social media and say they don't compare themselves to anyone else. That's a lie. It's it's a fallacy. Like, I'm the first to say, like, I always say, like, I love attention. Like, I don't, like, if I'm posting on social media, there's a part of me that's posting for attention. Like, I'm not going to sit here and lie about that.
Right.
But it's like, knowing these things about myself, knowing that competition is part of it, comparing myself is part of it, looking at whether it's like the social media content or my friends that do podcasts, and like I've talked to them about this, is like seeing what they do and collabing with them and working with them. There's still a part of me that wants to like beat them. Like, I'm gonna want to beat you, and I think that stems from sports. Like, early on being instilled like how to be competitive, and football specifically with like that for me was like, especially having my dad as a coach, was just like on me all the time, and like, you got to be better, you got to be better, you got to be better, just drilled into my head. And like, even with what I do with work in the accounting finance realm, it's about consistency. It's like the same thing. You're going to expect it most of the time. And if you have something that shows up, you got to work through it. And all these aspects of sports. And you really can tell the people who played sports and didn't play sports, because something my dad always used to say in the car rides up was like, people who don't listen to coaches, who don't respond to coaching, like those kids who kind of lack the discipline in the sports, who kind of just would fuck off and not do shit or would be lazy, it's going to spill right into their work. It's going to spill right into their whatever they do as they grow up in life. And I've seen that. I've seen the way people react. And one of the critiques I get from people is like, you take things too seriously. And I always look at people, I'm like, I think you take things not serious enough. Like, life's too short to just be like willy-nilly. Like, if you like have goals and have like drive and you're working towards something, you should be serious about this stuff. And part of this podcast is about having serious conversations. And I think that's what makes me successful at this, is because people in general don't have serious conversations. Like, people just want to be like, hi, bye, or like the casual, like, what's up? And like, just want to keep it moving. But this is a chance to slow down, to have something real, have someone ask you about your personal life, like from A to Z. And I don't think people do that all the time. So
because it's uncomfortable.
Exactly.
Like, that's everything. Like, with fitness, even like, people don't want to do things that make them uncomfortable. So that means having the conversations, or working hard in the gym, or getting up early, or like all eating right. All of that makes people uncomfortable. And that's what sets, you know, I don't want to generalize, but typically an athlete and like someone who wasn't an athlete is like, athletes have put their bodies and their minds through that like rigorous uncomfortability to reach their goal. So it's ingrained in them that that's what they know they need to do. Like, you have to get uncomfortable to reach your goal. And people just hate that. The average person doesn't like that.
No, it's facts. And like, you can generalize. I think generalizations are how the world works for the most part. Like, obviously, if we built rules for every exception, like, our rules would be crazy. Like, you have to go for the majority versus the minority. And I agree with that for most things. So I don't think that's like an incorrect statement, but it's true. Like, athletes are instilled with this, and especially the athletes who are successful know this stuff. Like, anytime that I've gone down the fitness endeavor, because I'm like one of those people where I'm not training for anything specific, but I know it's important to my actual health to be like physically active, that when I start slacking off for a little bit, I know how to lock back in. And it's like this constant, like, all right, maybe a few months during the winter, I'll start to slide. And then it's like, all right, it's go time, lock back in. Like, morning workouts, we're cutting down calories, we're intaking protein more, we're having chicken, rice, broccoli. Like, it's like, I know what works for me and how to lock back in. And I think once you know that, like, nothing can really phase you, and you could apply that to everything that you do, and it just works. I want to dive into kind of like getting towards college and kind of post-college, because we talked a little bit about, because I would agree with the statement, like, college and like schooling in general, like, it's not as important as people make it out to be nowadays. I think it's unfortunate as it is, the education system in our country is definitely sliding, and it's becoming less and less impactful on people, because everything that I've learned in my realm of accounting finance was on-job experience. Like, sure, the basics, I learned the basics in school, but anything past that, everything was on job. Like, everything was in the work environment. I'm a hands-on person. Maybe that's why. But for you, as you kind of approach your senior year, and you mentioned like looking for scholarships and like all that, what was the push to go to school and get into kind of like your career that you're in now?
Yeah, the push was my parents.
Yeah.
Because if it were up to me, I wouldn't have gone. I really wouldn't have, like, I mean, again, it's also a generational thing. It's like we look at our parents and it was like graduate from high school, go to college, get married, get a house, have kids. Like that's the timeline and that's the standard. And like I personally don't live my life that way. I'm not on a timeline. I'm not my life's purpose as a female is not to like find a husband and have kids. Like that's not my purpose at all. Maybe that happens or maybe I want that, but that's who I was raised by, was people like that. Like my mom went to college, grew up in Westerly, went to URI, found her husband, my dad, had 5 kids, was a stay-at-home mom while my dad provided for the family. And it's like, it was beautiful. I had an amazing childhood. It's just, I know my life is not going to be that way because I'm a business owner and I want more of like the career. So like I could be doing everything I'm doing now without a college education. But my parents, grew up knowing that college education is what you get. Like you have to have a college education. And I got a full ride to a school. So I understood why they were like, why would you give that up? Like you don't know what you want to do. You don't know what you want to study. So just go. It's free. Take the scholarship. And it was a fight. Like it was a fight with my parents because I really didn't want to go. And also I was 18 years old. I didn't know what I wanted to do. All my friends were going to URI and were going to have the time of their lives. And I was like, I want to do that too. But now at 29, I'm like, I'm so glad with what I did because it actually got me out of my comfort zone. I didn't go with all my friends and stay in the same tight-knit group to URI. Like I got out of my comfort zone and went to a school I went to University of New Haven with like not a single human being that I knew and went on this basketball team. And the first year was really, really tough for me. Like I was like deeply depressed, like horrible. I would say the first semester, like up until like January, I was like, felt like I was a big fish in a small pond. And I just went and I'm like a little tadpole in like, I was terrible. I wasn't performing. I wasn't playing right. My confidence was shot. Like I couldn't function. It was really bad. I was ready to transfer and like go to Rick or something. Like I just couldn't get it together. And then, I don't know, I'm not really sure like what kind of fell into place for me the second semester. I think I started to make more friends and like I probably just opened myself up more and just like decided, okay, this is where I'm going to be for the next 3.5 years. So just like be open to it and like just dive in. And I did. And after that, it was amazing. It really was. Like I had this team that became my best friends. Like that is the great thing about going into school, like whether you're going to do sports or Greek life or something, you do have like built-in friends. And that's helpful because it's a little overwhelming to go somewhere that you don't know a single person. So that was helpful for me. And obviously I'm glad with the decision that I made to go. We won 3 games my freshman year, so it was horrible. But then my senior year, we ended up in the we were regional champions my senior year and then went to the Elite 8. So it was one of like the biggest turnarounds in 4 years that like they had ever seen before at University of New Haven. So that was cool, but it was like a strange experience. We had like 5 different coaching changes. We had like, 8 girls on our team like tore their ACLs. Like we were kind of up against it for a little while with that team, but at the end of the day, it was like a wonderful experience, and all my teammates are still in my life. Like they're just, it was a good decision that I made. And looking back on it, I have no student loans. I'm able to open a business because I don't have loans. It was the right decision. But at 18 years old, I just wanted to like move to California and like do my own thing or do what my friends were doing because you're so young. But weirdly enough, I actually went into school to be a nurse because I didn't know what I wanted to do. But the only thing I did know is that I love helping people. So I went in, they didn't have nursing at the school. So I went in as like a bio major. I cannot do science or math. Like I'm terrible at it. So quickly I was like, actually, this isn't, I don't even care saying it, but like I was failing classes. I was put on like academic probation. I couldn't play a couple of games because I just couldn't, it was so hard. And the public school I came from didn't really set me up to like do hours and hours of studying or anything. I literally got my senior year in high school the hall monitor award because I was in the hallways more than I was in class. This like joke superlative because I literally never went to class. And I just was like, no one cared. No one cared. And so then I went to school and it was just like a wake up call. But I ended up switching to communications in college because I was going to do like broadcasting, like sports broadcasting. So I knew it was like, I knew somehow I just wanted to help people and I wanted to be involved in keeping people active, which obviously makes sense with what I'm doing now. But at the time, like kind of going back to that identity crisis, like it hit you after that game around Thanksgiving time. Like it hit me so hard. I remember it was graduation day, my senior year in college. And I was like super hungover too, like in graduation because we're all celebrating, we're like leaving. And I remember like, I don't know who made the speech and I was probably just like down a little bit too, but like someone was making this speech about like our futures or whatever. And I remember it just like hitting me like, Liz, you do not have a job lined up. You don't even want to do this sports broadcasting thing anymore. Like you're about to leave and like, you're moving back in with your parents at like 21 or 22 with nothing lined up and like no idea what you want to do. And you have no idea who you are because you're just a basketball player. That's it. And that's when I was like, oh my God, like, holy shit, this is crazy. I don't know what's about to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. And
It
I
was
was
so
just
weird.
like that. Cause I had like, my problem was like right after high school and football ends, like sports for everything. And I was going to go military and that didn't pan out the way I wanted it to. So then, because everyone was always like, they had their college lined up. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. And like, I was like, you guys are going to go to school. I'm going to go to the military. Like, fuck you guys. Like, I don't care. And then it didn't happen. And then I was like, oh shit, I got to figure this out now. And because like I tried to latch on to the military thing as like my identity. I was like, I'm good. And then like that falls through and like I didn't put a thought into college. And I was like, oh shit, I got to figure this out quick.
Yeah.
Skipped the semester, worked. And that was a humbling experience. Like I worked at Stop and Shop. I was bagging and doing like cashier. And I'm like, I don't want to do this shit. And I was like, what the fuck? So I went to school, went to UMass Dartmouth. And I went for like criminal justice. And I was like, this ain't it either.
Yeah.
And I stumbled into the business school like anyone else who doesn't know what they want to do. And I just like, it's like, I got to figure out something. And I was like, well, I took a couple like business classes and then like accounting was like, well, this is like the language of business. And I was like, I'm good at math. It was always like there. So the more I took it, the more I liked it. And it's something that like I wanted to know regardless. So if I like eventually turn this into a business, like I don't want to do the accounting, but like to be able to understand what's in front of me, like the assets, the liabilities, all like the balance sheet, the financial statements, the taxes, like I want to know this stuff. I think it's important stuff to know. So that was the driver to get in there. And it's like one of the things that I've learned through my journey of working is just like, if I have to work like a job to get my benefits and all that stuff, I'm fine doing that. Yeah. Because I have this, like I have an identity. I figured out something that works for me. And it wasn't until removing myself from like you say, in like this like smaller pond, like I just removed myself and put myself in like Texas and Georgia where I didn't really know anyone. And I'm like, oh shit, like this is like different. And then being in that lifestyle of just like 9 to 5 working, like you think, and this is where it really hit me, was like being in Texas, new friends, new job, living in like Fort Worth, Texas, near Dallas. You think like, oh man, he's doing great for himself. He's got a good ass job. He's got new friends in a new city.
On paper.
And I was the most depressed I've ever been in my life. And like, that was like similar to your experience. It was like finally leaving my hometown and like putting myself somewhere else. I was like, I don't have anything. And like, it really like forced me to, and like, I was overweight. I wasn't working out. I was drinking to make friends. And I remember looking myself in the mirror, especially I went home for the holidays and came back and I'm looking at myself in the mirror and I'm like, I say I was fat. People are like, oh, you're chubby. I was fat. And like, I'm looking at myself and I'm like, who is this? Yeah. And that inspiration started me on my fitness journey. I started doing 5 a.m. workouts, like nonstop, controlling my calories, doing meal preps, like getting into it more. And then once I got my physical health kind of figured out, then I moved to Georgia and I got put into a toxic work environment. And that's when I really was like, you can't rely on this job shit forever. You need something that's you and unique and that you could like work on and that you actually have passion for, because if you just go to your job every single day and come home and work out, what kind of life is that? There is no meaning to that.
Yeah.
So got into podcasting. Back. Sorry, guys. I was not paying attention to the camera on that. So I was probably rambling, so you guys didn't really miss much. But interesting to turn the conversation into like that, like you were talking about this post-college experience, and you have this degree, and you're looking with no job. Like, how do you end up into the career path that you're in right now?
Yeah. So when I moved back in with my parents, I ended up like it was actually a really cool job, and it was perfect for the time that, like, the timing and where I was in life. But I ended up working for BMW, like a marketing company that worked, I guess, for BMW. We set up events all throughout the country, and it was really cool. Like, it was just myself and a bunch of people around my age, and we just traveled and set up all these really cool, like, BMW racing events, or just to like promote the cars. It was cool. It was like a small contract. I think it was like 6 months, but it was perfect for like where I was, just post college. And then I came back, and I like sort of forget, I guess. I waitressed. I was in service industry for a while. And then I was just like, I don't want to do this. Like, it's taxing, and I can't, well, am I going to do this for like 40 years? Like, this isn't what I want to do. So then I was like, okay, how do I put the two things I know I love, which are helping people and being active, together? It's personal training. So I got my certification, and then I worked at like the YMCA as like the floor girl who like just walks around and like watches people work out, mostly incorrectly. But like, I can't say anything because I'm not a trainer there. I'm just like this monitor who like cleans up the weights. So I did that. And then I think from there, I moved back to where I went to school. So in Connecticut, and I started to work for the Edge, actually. So there's Edges here now, but they started in Connecticut. So I worked for the Edge for a while as like a shake girl. I was just making shakes. And then one of my managers was like, why don't you just be a personal trainer? Like, so I had my certification. So then I started training there, which was a great experience in the sense that like it built up my confidence as a trainer. It taught me, how to talk to people, how to build those relationships. That really is like the most important thing when it comes to training, is like being that person who can listen and build a relationship with these people. So it was a great place to start. But, ever since I was a kid, I don't want to work for anybody. That's just how I always was. That's how my dad was. And I just knew that at a young age. At a young age, I didn't know what I was going to do in order to not work for somebody, but I just knew I never did want to do that. So the Edge is very corporate. So there were just things about it that I was like, I can't do this for much longer. So then I went to Orange Theory actually for a little while, also corporate. So I just did that for a short time. And then my life, like some stuff happened in my life, kind of flipped it upside down. I had moved to New Jersey for a short time, quit Orange Theory in Connecticut, moved to New Jersey, picked up Orange Theory there because I knew I'd, get hired. I worked for the company. I just did a transfer basically. Moved to New Jersey, stayed there for 2 months. Life got flipped upside down, came back, didn't know where I was going to go at this point. I had to leave my job, come back to my parents' house. Now I'm like 26 or 27, and I was like, okay, now I'm back now. What do I do? And then I heard that they were opening up an Edge in Cranston. So I was like, I'll get hired there. I know I will because I'm a trainer and I've worked for them before. So I went back to the Edge, and I'm like, oh my fucking God, I'm back here. Like, I can't believe this. And so I stayed there for right up until COVID, like February. They shut the gyms down, and I was like, as everybody was just like, what the fuck? Like, what do we do now? It's like, I always like hesitate to even say this, but to be honest, COVID was kind of the best thing that could have happened to me because it gave me the opportunity to like not work at that job and start to build my own like personal training business. So I did that. And within 3 months I had, a full schedule. And then from there was just renting space out of a personal training gym for a year and a half. And then I opened my own.
That's so awesome. Like to go on that journey. Obviously, like in the time, it was probably like so chaotic and so like frustrating to go through that. Because I said the same thing about COVID. Like it was a blessing in disguise because I had just started this podcast November of 2019. So like like I said, I like to do in person. It's what I preferred. So I'm like super excited. Like I'm probably like maybe, I think I got right over the hump of 10 episodes. I'm maybe like 12, 13, 14 episodes in. And then boom, COVID. And I was like, fuck. Like I just lost the thing that I just thought I found.
Yeah.
And like it was so frustrating to be in that space, but it forced me to think like, all right, what can I do now?
Yeah.
And luckily, like I was close to my cousins. They've been on the podcast already. And then we started doing like a mini series. We call it the Quarantine Connection.
That's
and
cool.
like, and I was like, I just got to make content. Just got to keep making content. And then eventually over time, as people started to get a little bit more comfortable, I started back up and started getting guests again and like started rolling. But like there was that thought when COVID happened was like, well, do I just quit? Like, do I stop? Like, what do I do? And I'm like, now I'm just working again. And like, I think a lot of people had that realization during that period of like, what do we do now? And I'm glad that you took that step to like, well, I'm going to take control of my own life here.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people didn't do that. And then there's a few who actually was like, I'm going to take control. And it's like a positive thing.
Yeah.
I'm interested to know, like, as you've taken like the leadership role and you're the owner of the gym, the responsibility of that versus just being like a trainer in a gym.
Yeah. I am the owner. I am also a full-time personal trainer. I am my accountant. I am my like operations. I'm the janitor. Like when you're an owner, you're everything until you can grow yourself to then have people under you. But I'm not there right now. So like I do the social media. I clean the fucking toilet. I'm fixing equipment. I'm like, but it sounds like I'm negative about it, but it's not. It's like I've learned so much. Like I've taught myself. The amount of YouTube videos I've watched to learn how to fix things is insane. Like I like can build things now. I know how to run numbers and make reports and like do all these things that I never knew before. And it's like you said earlier, you're more like you learn on doing the job. And that's what I did too. I didn't do any of this in college. So yeah, the responsibility is like, because then sometimes you'll go into that like small part of my brain where I'm like, damn, life was like a lot easier when I was like, just had to show up and clock in and then leave. But it's not as rewarding, obviously. Like I love my life and I love the responsibility I have, and that I have 6 employees now that come to me when they need help or they look to me. And again, it's just like being on the court. Like I need those people. I love that I have people that trust me and look up to me and are inspired by me. But yeah, like there's those moments where you're like, damn, like it's midnight and I've been here since 6 and like this is a lot, but it's just one of those things that like it's all worth it. Like it's worth all the work and all the hours, because I get to like I'm very like, as I've gotten older, very like conscious of being aware of like, I'll take like mental pictures of like, look at this moment. Like every morning I drive up to the gym and I like purposely go in a way where I'm like driving straight. Shoot,
You're good.
like straight towards the gym instead of like going in the back. I'll like drive straight, and I just take in that second where I'm just like, you're literally driving up to a gym that like has your initials on it. And like, there's already like 3 coaches in there training. It's like, you have employees in there that are already up early, like training their clients. And you're just like pulling up to, it's like, it sounds corny, but it is like so amazing. Or like, I often take videos of the gym when we're really busy. I'll do like a big scan and I'm just like, Liz, like I'll like go home and I'll watch the videos. I'm like, this is amazing. Like, it's so worth it. It's just so worth all the work and all the hours, because I get to have moments like that. And I didn't have moments like that when at the other job. I mean, I was like dead broke too. Like working as a personal trainer in a corporate gym is like, it's a really good, when people ask me like, where did you start? I'm like, this is a great place to start. Like I said, it built my confidence, but I was like cooking eggs with like my winter coat on and like mittens, because I could barely pay my rent when I worked there. Like it's not rewarding financially. Of course the training is great, but like it's tough. It's a tough life. Like, you know, I was trying to live on my own, not ask my parents for help, and I was like really struggling. So like to know that I came from that to like here is like really cool feeling.
Yeah, I think part of that too is like, it's yours.
Yeah.
And I like that aspect. And like, that's why like I always encourage people to go down this like self-discovery route of like trying to find something in like, because like a lot of people, they don't get like their full love and desire from their job. Like their
Right.
job usually isn't fulfilling them in
Usually,
that
yeah,
way.
for sure.
And especially nowadays, because people are pushed through this college route and like you're forced to take on a lot of this debt, and you have to go get the job and you have to do the damn thing and pay off the loans, and like
Mhm.
people get stuck in this rat race, and
Mhm.
like, and to a degree, like I got pushed down that way, but like I was self-aware enough to look at the situation and was like, I'm not just gonna go pick a random degree that I'm not gonna go like get stuck in. At least like if I go do accounting, I know I can make money. I know there's always gonna be a need for accountants, and like I'll be able to pay off that stuff regardless. And then once I get those finances, then I can go invest in something that I want to do.
Right.
And that's how I was able to do this podcast, because like I went down that route and I was able to, and it stems, like I said in the beginning of the podcast, from the sports, being disciplined enough to be like, all right, I just got to do the damn thing. Like,
Yeah.
this is what I have to do. And it was allowing me to get into this space. And like, and you mentioned just like recording the videos. Every time I look back at my social media of the podcast, looking at all the conversations that I've had, and like, I have a specific aesthetic that I go with my Instagram. So like I'm looking through, and like every single week, it's for the most part a new conversation. And now that I'm at this point, I've had people come back who enjoyed the experience and want to do it again. And I'm like, that's like the coolest thing in the world, is like I've created something that people not only wanted to do once, but to do twice. And like, this is like my thing.
Yeah.
And it's like this, like, and I mean, like you said, with your gym has your initials, like this is my name on my stuff. And it's like, I take pride in like what I do and the conversations, and I make them more serious. And like, it goes back to what you said, is helping people.
Mhm.
Like, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychology major. I'm none of these things, but my whole goal is to make people feel seen and heard. And in your aspect, you're helping people feel better about themselves. And like, that's the best thing you could do, especially in a social media culture where we compare.
Of course.
So like, interested to know, like, as like, since you do everything, especially the social media aspect, what is the most difficult aspect about running the gym and then controlling the social media page? Because like, there's so much that goes into social media that a lot of people, especially the listeners who are listening to this stuff, don't see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the best thing that Instagram could have done was that collaboration thing. You know how you can collab?
Yeah.
So thankfully my coaches are amazing. And like when they'll post, they'll collab with the gym. So I'm like, yes, I got to post up and I didn't have to do anything. But the social media like aspect of this is, I'll be honest with you, it is like, it's really hard for me, because before me doing this, like being on my own, and like once COVID hit, starting my own personal training business, before that, I was like, no posts on Instagram, very private. Like it wasn't a thought. I probably was still using those ugly lo-fi filters on my stuff. Like I knew nothing about Instagram. And, but I was like, I'm not from Providence, and I was like, I'm about to start a personal training business in Providence where I know no one. So there wasn't word of mouth for me right away. I needed social media. So I was like, this is like you said, your resume. And I was like, this is the only way I can do this, is to like get out of my comfort zone and share my life and share my capabilities and my craft. And like, and then it just started rolling. Like I started to bring in clients, and then I got the word of mouth after that. But yeah, the social media, like, yes, we all do compare ourselves, because I'll look at like, especially when it comes to the fitness industry, which is quite saturated, it can be very overwhelming to me, because I'm like, I really want to remain authentic and like true to myself when it comes to social media, if we're talking strictly about like my brand. And so for me, I would rather just like give education and show workouts and show like, you know, modifications, or just educate people. That's all I want to do. Whereas when I compare or look at other fitness accounts, it's a lot of like clickbait stuff. Like I always say, like, I just don't want to sell my soul to the peach pick devil. Like, I just don't want to post my ass all the time. I don't want to, but like, unfortunately, like that's what blows up for people. And like, I don't know, or like the personality reels, they're awesome. And like people do a great job with them, but it's just like not in my nature to do that. Like I'll be goofy in front of you when you're around me, but like to put myself out there on reels like that, it's just not like me. I'd so much rather just put up what I'm good at, which is a workout or educating somebody on a move or something like that. So but then it's like, okay, Liz, you talk about getting out of your comfort zone all the time and you expect this of your clients, so you have to do it too. So I do try to like push beyond what I want to do with social media. But there's so many little things like that I don't know that even you were saying, like posting at a certain time, like and I'm like, oh my God, I have a post. Just let me post it. Like I finally have a post, and I like don't want to think about that stuff, but I know it's super important. And also like I can just be so pessimistic when it comes to posting and content and all of that. But also the amount of people I've met through social media and like the messages I get about like how I've helped people and inspired people, it's like, okay, now it's all worth it. I'll post twice a day if you want me to. Like whatever I can do to like receive feedback like that, it's so worth it. It's just tough. Like it's hard.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, even look at this conversation right here. It stemmed from a social media in a sense because like I didn't know Garrick. He knew someone that had been on the podcast,
Yeah.
and it's just this constant like regression of just like you meet one person and meets another person,
Right.
and it's like, and then like, because I look at social media because like obviously like there has to be like a mutual benefit for both people to
Right.
to come on and do a collab and spend the time to have conversations because like we're all doing this essentially for free. Like we're trying to like make this content. And it's like you don't get paid a lot for the time for the content that you're making up front. It's
Yeah.
usually built over time, and then
Yeah.
you get the audience, and then they want to pay for it. So it's
Right.
like this constant thing. And I think you're doing a fantastic job with with the content because like I can look at the page and I quickly was able to see the way you portray yourself, and like you made the joke of just like selling yourself to the what was it?
Peach Pick Devil.
Yeah, and like I think that's so funny because a lot of especially girls that are in this space get caught up in that because like it's the quick easy way to get the followers because I mean that's unfortunately a lot of the guys are going to grab onto that and they're not looking at the content, they're looking
Right.
at you,
Right.
and that can be a dangerous path to go down, and like you see a lot of girls do and they don't like the attention that they get from that.
Right.
So I think the path that you're painting for yourself, where you're really selling the workouts and like the education behind it, and you add a few years to that, I mean, it's gonna pay off. Like
Yeah.
it's the same way I look at the podcast. Like, yeah, maybe I get 5 likes on a post today. You had 5 years of me doing this with like the amount of new people that I can bring in each and every week. It's gonna be something worth something, and
Yeah.
like it's only worth what you put in. So if you want to put in a little bit, you might not get a lot back.
Right.
So the more you put in, the more you get. And it's
Yeah.
like, it sucks that we have to do it this way. But like you said, the positive feedback that you do receive, it's worth everything in
It's
the
worth
world.
it, yeah.
And I think people don't see that. They just see the content. And like some of the conversations that I've had and like off podcasts and DMs, like it's worth every second that I spend editing and like setting up the lights, the camera, like everything that people don't see, the time that I put in off that. It's worth everything when I get that message, hey, I really like the podcast, or hey, my family really loved listening to like the conversation that I had. I'm like, that's worth everything in the world.
100%, yeah.
And I'm interested to learn a little bit about let me pause the camera back, so I'm not gonna have another issue with my camera. So I want to know a little bit about, so a client comes to you and they want to gain a little bit of control of like their life physically. Kind of what would you want to kind of like sell like yourself a little bit in this sense, but like tell it to that client or coach them to that client, because like a lot of I'm big on physical health, but I'm also big on mental health. So like I'm big, if you get the physical right, the mental's going to fall right between. So kind of curious to like the way that you approach that and the way you go, because obviously every person's going to be different. But like kind of like maybe there might be like some like method to it that you like to follow consistently. So
I mean, I think that like I think they say like personal trainers and hairdressers or like therapists, like people really will like open up to me very often. I love it and I can listen well. And the like stories that I hear, it's like what, you know, people just have, everyone has their story. And often I know it usually when they sit down and they do a consultation, they'll open up to me and they'll tell me, you know, why they're here. And it's not always, it usually starts with the aesthetic, the physical part of it. But I'm also kind of good at like digging. Like I can usually get out of them more than they plan to say when they sat down. But that's important to me. Like I want to know that. I want to know like more than just what they're trying to look like. I want to know why they're sitting in my chair. Cause usually it goes beyond just like, I want to lose 20 pounds. I'm going through a divorce right now, or, you know, COVID messed with my mental health. Like you'll hear these things and that is way more important to me than like the aesthetic of what these people are trying to do. And obviously I know, like you said, the physical happens first and then the mental falls into place. But typically, like, one thing I'm just gonna like boast about my gym for a second, but like it is like I call it my oasis, because it is like when you walk into the gym, and I've like obviously heard this from a lot of other people, and that's why I feel really confident saying it, is like I just feel like it's an immediate like exhale. Like it is just I purposely made it like in the way I designed it, and like the colors and how I set everything up was for people to feel like it was like an oasis. Like it's safe, it's happy, it's like light, it's a lot of natural light coming in. Like I don't know, that stuff is very important to me, because people walking into a gym, they're already uncomfortable most of the time. So I just wanted to make sure that like even just walking in, you're physically like and just emotionally and mentally feel better. And then obviously the team that I put together is a big part of that. Like when you walk in, everyone's saying hello. You're basically getting bombarded with like 7 hellos the second you walk through the door. It's just welcoming. And I just feel like these are like the little details that over time, these people coming 3 or 4 times a week, like this, they may not even realize it, but it's like making them feel better. I mean, I get texts all the time, like, I can't wait till my session. Like, I just want the week to fly by so I can see you. Like, I want to come to the gym. Like, I mean, I even, like, I'll have some clients who I know are kind of like going through a time. I'm like, just come to the gym. You don't have a session, but come. You can come and just hop on the treadmill. Like, they literally feel better when they're like in those 4 walls. And that just means so much to me. But yeah, like when I sit down with a new client, I do dig, I figure out why they're there. But you know, if I'm talking more like how I like sell a client is like learn what they want, obviously. Typically though, like I do work with my clients 3 or 4 times a week, usually mine. I would say like the average lifespan for a client is like 4 to 6 months usually, but I have clients I've had for like over 2 years. And that to me is like, that means everything, because it's just like, they see the value in it. They see what they're getting from it. They see the results. They feel the results. And again, they just love to be there. But you know, I do nutrition coaching with them, but it's interesting. Like when you sit down with somebody, it does have to be catered per person. Obviously any good trainer knows that, but like you have to know what this person can conceptualize and like digest in the beginning, because it's like there's some people where I can read pretty quickly that like I'm not going to have a macro counting on day 1. Like it's just not going to work for them. It's going to mess with them a little bit. They'll feel discouraged. They'll feel like a failure at the beginning, and those obviously the opposite of what we want people to feel. So like I think what like separates a average trainer from a good trainer or a great trainer is like really like digging into that individual human being, not having like a blanket way to do things. Like you dig into that person, figure out what their needs are, because it's different for everybody. And then like I think one I've like read on like building relationships is a lot of mirroring too. Like you mirror personalities, which is such a funny, like, because I'm always going to be me to a certain extent. Like I'm just like loud, goofy, like whatever. But like I train differently based on the person. I know I have some clients who need me to be like counting every single rep, being like quiet. They need to focus. And then I have other clients who were like, you know, we can talk about their day. We can whatever. You have to cater to the person. But yeah, I mean, that's just like, I think what you learn over time and just experience with different people.
Yeah. I've read a lot of the same thing of mirroring people. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of the books that I read, I love psychology stuff. I love learning how, us as humans think, why we think what we do, like even subconsciously, like, and even like that pre-interview, why I even do that is to get people comfortable in a space.
Yeah.
Like I will literally, my whole goal is like, I'll tell my whole life story in like that 30, 40 minutes to allow people to create a space where people feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, this is me. This is what it is. And if you feel comfortable, it allows the other person, it's like, all right, well, he talked about this. Well, I feel a little bit more comfortable to speak a little bit more openly about myself.
Yeah.
And because like there's a method to the madness. Like I am a very chaotic person in a lot of aspects of my life, but like there is reasons behind what I do.
Yeah.
And like even the social media stuff, and I've gotten critiques on like the TikTok stuff and like you shouldn't do that or that, or I'm like, there's a reason why I do everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like I might not always know it while I'm doing it, but like there is reasons why. Like the consistency on social media, like I know over time is going to be worth it because like everyone starts somewhere. Like it's just up to you whether you start now or a week later, a month later, a year later. And like within that distance of when you could have started, you could have gained so much in that aspect, whether it is followers, knowledge, or just experience.
Yeah.
And it flows right into fitness and taking care of yourself in the gym wise. Like if you start January 1st, you could be a lot further than someone who starts on like June 1st. Like there's like a huge difference. And I think part of the thing with being a personal trainer too is like you're also teaching someone how to take care of their body.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people who specifically aren't athletes don't know how to do that.
Yep.
And if they're able to feel comfortable to like do it on their own, I think that's a positive thing too, because you're teaching them so much that they didn't already know.
Yeah. I always say that like when I sit down with people, I'm like, essentially, I want you to leave me. Like, I don't want you to be at this gym forever. Like, if you, after however many months or a year or whatever, are able to walk into a gym confidently and go over to that squat rack and get a workout done on your own, that's a win for me. Like, and you can, you know, intuitively eat and know what you're putting in your body is good from the education that I've given you, and you feel like you can sustain this lifestyle forever without me, that is a win. That's what I want. Like, I don't want them forever. I love it. I love my clients that I've had for over 2 years, but when I get those DMs after somebody who's left me and they're like, I just did a whole workout in the gym by myself, I feel amazing. I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I wanted. So that's it. Like, that is a win. That's what I'm looking for.
I love that because I even like, I jokingly say that to a lot of my followers who like will come to like I try to make even the podcast, whether it's the podcast or my social media platforms, I want to make it therapeutic. Like I want it to feel like a safe environment where you can say what you want to say, feel what you need to feel. But part of that is you let it go after. It is what it is. I want people, especially when they come on the podcast, is like, you come in the space, you talk about your life, and like after you leave here, you feel good. Like you feel like someone actually cared about what you like had to say.
Yeah.
And with the TikTok, a lot of it's relationships and breakups and stuff. I'm like, come here, relate to the content, but don't stay. Like you don't need to stay here. Like this is a place for people who are struggling on social media. And I try to put feelings that I've had or are having into words. Or if I see relatable posts that I actually like, I'll take the audio and put it out there. And people are like, oh, you're not doing much. You're just sitting there looking sad, playing music, putting quotes. But like, if I could, I always would say this to people, like, if I could show you the DMs that I do get from people or the messages I do get from people that are like, thank you for putting my thoughts into words, or thank you for sharing this. And it's like, people do appreciate this stuff. And it's like, once you find that niche, you find those people that relate, because with social media, so many people aren't gonna relate. And that's the weirdest thing when you like create something, is like, you think people are gonna be like, yeah, look at them, they're doing this. Most people don't care. Most people are not gonna rally around you and just gonna like watch you from a distance. So it's like being okay with like not having that whole like eyes on you. It's like, you got to be able to work hard when the eyes aren't on you. So when the time does come in, it's like people start looking. Yeah. You're rocking and rolling. People aren't going to be like, oh shit, look at them now. Like, look at this.
Now, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a whole interesting thing to me too. Cause I think about like, I wonder how many people are like muted my Instagram or like are annoyed with my posts. And I feel like typically it's like, I feel like you get the most like, the people who relate to you the most are actually like support you. Like, this is kind of funny. Maybe I'm going to say it wrong, but like, relate to you and support you and then like say how appreciative they are of you are usually people you don't really know. And it's usually the people like closest to you that you don't hear it that often, which is an interesting concept to me. Like, I think that like I didn't know that at first. Like, I didn't realize that. So that's like something that I think I've learned to like just accept, that it's not the people that you thought would be like saying the stuff. It's like actually strangers.
Yeah, every time that I've done anything, whether it's podcast, TikTok, social media, whatever it is, it's always the people who I didn't know that are like super like supportive. And like everyone too, like that's why like I love doing the podcast now, is like the people who come on are always the ones who support me the most. And it's usually the people who I didn't know prior that are like usually my biggest and best supporters. The people who I knew like before the podcast and then come on, they come, they go. It kind of is what it is. It's like a normal day. And I've learned to accept that. Yeah. But like My second episode was with my grandfather, and he's since passed. And when he passed, I had because he wasn't a social media person, obviously, the older generation, but so he didn't share his content. He didn't get to share his episode, and like I was so early in it. So when he did pass, every single person who had been on my podcast, like I had asked if like they could, and without a doubt, everyone did was share his episode across social media. So like there was just one day where it was just his episode was everywhere, and like that was the coolest thing to know
I
that
got chills.
it was like the coolest thing to know that like these people like actually cared.
Yeah.
And I got this message from, I'll shout her out, Tracy Moskowitz. She messaged me and was like, Jared, you're there for everyone else, but like know that we're here for you too. And that was like the most reassuring thing was like knowing that the people who I'm talking to do care about what I have to say and do care about the conversations that we have, and they got my back. And like, I think that's the coolest aspect is I'm creating a network and connections that are actually valuable.
Yeah. And
they hold weight. And I think that's the coolest thing in the world. I'm going to start bringing us home on this podcast. I think this has been fucking fantastic. I don't know why I thought I clicked that button by accident. But is there anything that you have to say or you want to say prior to me going into that last question? So if, as long as it's not tied to passions, is there anything you wanted to say?
No, I don't think so.
All right, cool. So the last question I have for you is, what would your advice be to someone who wants to pursue their passion?
I think there's always those standard answers that we hear a lot, but like, I think that for me, it's, so like when I was growing up and I was a basketball player, this is going to sound so corny, but like it is good. It's like just my dad would, before every game, he would say, just give 110, just give 110% of your effort every single time. And it's like, cause I think there's competition out there. There's people that are giving 100, but if you can give a little bit more, like always, like when you think you're done, and this is like every aspect of your life. Like when you're like, damn, I've reached my end, this is it. Like you can always go a little bit further. I mean that with reps in the gym, with like an hour more at your desk and working, or get up 1 hour earlier in the morning. Like your body can always do a little bit more. You're always capable of more than you think. So like, you feel defeated or you feel like it's not going to work, just go a little bit longer. And that's when things start to fall into place. Like I'm telling you, just like keep going and be patient and be gentle to yourself. Cause there are going to be like times when it seems like, damn, this just isn't going to happen for me. Like it's not going to happen. I have felt that. And I have been like really at my like wit's end and like feeling like there was no way I was climbing out of this. And I did, because I just like, you have to have that, like, there's no way I'm failing type of personality. Like, I remember when I was opening the gym, somebody said to me, like, what happens if it fails? I was like, what do you mean? They're like, well, have you thought about that? Do you have an exit strategy? I said, fuck no. I haven't even thought about that, because it's not an option. Like, it is literally not an option for me to fail. And if you just tell yourself that every single day, that you're going to always push harder and always keep going and you're never going to fail, you're going to get where you want to be. It's just, it might take a little longer, but you'll get there. So just don't put failure as an option. There's no exit strategy, and you just keep pushing as long as you can, and it will happen. 100%.
Perfect. I think it's a perfect bow to tie up this amazing episode. Yes. I appreciate you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much.
And sharing so much. Like, this is definitely up there for one of my favorite interviews that we've had. I've done a lot of these episodes to have a back and forth and to relate on so many things. And obviously it's our first time meeting. So I think this has been an awesome episode.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This was fun.
Appreciate it. So for you guys, if you guys like the podcast, please rate, review, subscribe, share with your friends, share with your family, share with your grandma. I'll be tagging Liz and the gym in like Instagram. I'll tag you on Facebook and all that stuff. So please follow the gym. Please check it out. If you need a trainer, if you need a gym,
hell yeah,
have to check it out. Check it out, carrollconnection.simplecast.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the major listening platforms. If you want to watch the podcast, check out on YouTube. Just search Carroll Connection on YouTube. You'll be able to find it. So until next time, guys, peace.